It's time for the SevereMMA preview show with Sean Sheehan, Spencer Kite, Harry Powell, and your host, Ian O'Neill.
That is right. It is your host, Ian O'Neill, and today I am joined by Mr. Sean T. Sheehan and Mr. Harry Powell. No Spencer this week. He's off enjoying his holidays, and I hope he's having a fantastic time. Before we get into the UFC 279 card that is headlined by Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz, let me remind you guys about our fantastic sponsors, and that's All Real Nutrition Bars. Head on over to eatallreal.com, enter the code word SevereMMA, and get yourself 15% off those delicious protein bars. They come in cashew nut, cookie dough flavor, peanut butter flavor, orange flavor, chocolate, coconut, you name it, they have it. Peanut butter spread, everything. Some wonderful glasses and everything over there. Eatallreal.com, enter the code word SevereMMA, and get you some All Real Nutrition Bars. Fair play to the lads, Irish run company. Fair play to them, they do a great job. And we're going to do a job on this card tonight as well. UFC 279. Rather than get into it, I kind of like to break us in a little bit. You know, Sean, you're coming back off of a tough day, putting IKEA furniture together and other stuff. I mean, is there anything worse in this world than sticking IKEA furniture together? How many screws are missing?
Do you know the worst part? Though? I got to the very end. So what it was it's an extendable table, right? So it's a table, you pull out the legs, you put in another part, and you stick it in or whatever. I made one fuck up. I put the end that you clip the extendable in the wrong fucking end. I had to take it apart and put it on the other end. But the worst part of it was at the bottom. So there's these little clips, right, that you clip in the extendable bit. The holes were like the completely wrong size. I had to get the screw, fucking hammer it into the hole to make a hole in it, and then screw it in.
Ah, jeez.
It was a farce altogether. Don't shop on IKEA. Although my desk I'm at the moment is an absolutely fantastic IKEA desk. A shout out to Patrick Sheehan for bringing it all the way down from Dublin for me in a car that was not big enough to bring this table all the way down from Dublin. IKEA are good, but they're bad. Look for the value stuff. This desk. IKEA has the best computer desks of anyone. Go for the cheaper ones because they're still class. Fuck the dearer ones. But IKEA, also, last thing on IKEA, the worst shop on planet Earth. I will never ever step in IKEA.
There's only one way in and one way out. Like,
oh, it's a maze. It's like you die in there. It's death. It's
the meatballs. The meatballs. Did you indulge?
No, I wasn't in IKEA. Actually, this was got about 6 months ago. So
the truth is coming out now.
Actually, it was delivered. This table was, to be honest, from IKEA. So
right.
If only had the meatballs on, they're not worth it. There was like horse meat in these meatballs or something, wasn't it? Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly, and it's not fucking worth walking around the fucking store for 4 hours to get to the place where you eat some food as well. Yeah, I'd agree with you now. If we were to go on technical analysis on IKEA, very hit and miss. IKEA. Yeah. But we guess, Harry, you are doing good. You're back from your vacation. You're back on the preview show. You were telling us before the show, got the chance to see Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock at the weekend. I bet you that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was savage. Absolutely fucking savage. Life-changing, frankly.
Life-changing. Well, could be some life-changing things happening on UFC 279 on Saturday night. Khamzat Chimaev looking to remain undefeated as he comes in here against Nate Diaz for the main event. I mean, this main event, this kind of pay-per-view, which is sandwiched in between the last event where we've had one of the biggest shocks and upsets of the year with Leon Edwards, and ahead of the next pay-per-view, which is probably one of the best pay-per-views on paper of the year so far. UFC 279 may be remembered for all the wrong reasons, and there's been a lot of negativity coming into this card. Some deserved, some undeserved, but it's here, it's happening, and there's jack shit that we can do about it. There's no easy way or other way to explain this. There's a hit job that's being put out on Nate Diaz here, and the hit job is being thrown towards Khamzat Chimaev. Looking at it from a competitive standpoint, for me, it doesn't set my world on fire watching this fight. I'm not looking forward to it at all. I will watch, of course, I'm going to watch, but I can't say I'm buzzing for it. And it's very strange to say that for a pay-per-view event. Also, you know, from a business point of view, we can sit here and we probably will criticize the UFC for what they've tried to do to Nate Diaz, holding him out, not giving him the opponents that he wants, not giving him the matchups that he wants. Really going long on the tooth with his contract. But, you know, at the same time, the UFC have been doing this for years, and they will continue to do it for years. That's their business model. They're trying to get that star shun on Khamzat Chimaev. They're trying to get Nate Diaz beaten on the last fight of his contract. That's the overall kind of synopsis on this main event. We will get into the analysis of the card. We will get into other opinions on what our thoughts are. The UFC are saying one thing, Sean. Nate Diaz was saying another thing, and somewhere in the middle, the truth lies. To you, what is the truth of this main event and to this card and the situation overall?
Yeah, myself and Spencer actually did a podcast on it over in Sherlock, breaking all three sides down of it, I suppose. The UFC side, the Diaz side, and I suppose the fan side of it as well. I think if you're looking at it from an amalgamation of all those three sides, and what I suppose everyone is worried about is the actual fight itself. The fighters are not the actual fight itself, but the people to buy it, the UFC for them to buy it, and Nathan Diaz for them to buy it as well. I think the fact that you mentioned Leon Edwards there is a massive thing for this fight, because what is everyone saying after Leon Edwards won that fight? Anything can happen in MMA. We came into the card, I don't know about you, but I was writing him off. But it was kind of, it's a very different sort of writing off Leon Edwards against Usman than Diaz against Chimaev, because I thought like Edwards is a very good fighter, but Usman was just a little bit better in every area, which kind of played true for almost all of the fight.
Yeah, we were like 50 seconds away from being exactly right, because we all criticize Edwards' chances.
But the Diaz, does he have a chance to win, is not the same sort of chance. It's not that he's just a bit better in every area. He is destructively better in every single fucking area. The thing about it, though, is I'm sure Harry will give you a good breakdown here in a minute of the complexities of this fight and the integers which will decide it. But the vast majority of people who'll be buying this card won't know that. All they'll be thinking was, look, Leon Edwards knocked the guy spark out in the last fight, who everyone thought was going to beat him. The fight before that, Nathan Diaz was within a punch of beating Leon Edwards. Why can't he beat Chimaev, who's the third best guy in the world? That's probably what they're thinking. And if the UFC are promoting it right, I haven't seen any of the promotion material so far. That's the way they'll be promoting it. Now, is that right or wrong? We all know it's not correct. Again, it's not the way it's going to work out. But this, to me, this is a no-brainer, a really easy fight to promote from where we are right now, and because of what has just happened. And I really think that Usman Edwards fight will massively help this, because people will still have in their minds anything can happen in MMA. Now, I don't think it will personally in this. I think to answer your initial question as well a little bit better, and I'll throw it over to yourself and Harry again. I think the UFC are doing what they need to do, and I don't think the UFC deserve half the criticism they've got for doing what they have done. Like, it's Nate Diaz's last fight. He does not want to sign back for him. They've offered him a deal. He does not want to sign the deal. He wants to leave the UFC, and the UFC have said, look, fine, this is what we need to do to make the most out of Nathan Diaz. Now, the point me and Spencer made on the podcast, I think, is like if Rafael Assunção was said he got his last fight at the UFC, which people have massive sympathy for him, or, you know, Chad Mendez, or whoever it might be, Julian Erosa, I don't think we would. And the UFC would probably try to put an up-and-comer over them to get out, you know? And this is a similar thing. Now, that's from the UFC's point of view. Okay, you can say everyone should be treated better, all the matchmakers should be fair and all. If you look at it from a purely matchmaking point of view, absolutely. But from Diaz's point of view, it's the fight he needs to take to get out of the UFC, if we're being honest. From Chimaev's point of view is the most interesting one. Maybe we'll get to that later on. But I think from the UFC's point of view, we don't have to like it. I don't like it, and I would guess that neither of you don't like it. But if we don't understand it, we're only fucking fooling ourselves and no one else. We have to understand what they're doing here. They're trying to put Chimaev over Diaz. I don't think it'll work. I don't think it'll work, but maybe that's a discussion for later on.
Yeah, I think that statement in its own right is exactly how I feel. I don't like it, but I understand it. It's the nature of the beast. It's the nature of the business. And Nate Diaz doesn't like it himself. And I listened to his interview with Brett Okamoto on ESPN, and I could see that in him, that he did not like this fight. He does not want this fight. He is not happy with his situation. He's not shy to tell us that either, or tell Brett Okamoto. Did you see that interview, Harry? I'm curious to kind of get your assessment. I know for sure you don't like this fight from a competitive standpoint, from a business standpoint, from all kind of standpoints, really.
Absolutely. I'm just going to read out an excerpt from that interview on ESPN, and I retweeted it earlier. Nate Diaz says, "This fight's not even about this guy. It's about making this guy." I'm like, okay, well, you guys aren't going to let me go because I'm the best fighter here. That's the most Nate Diaz line of all time. And you're not going to let me go unless it's off of somebody. Well, all right, let's make him. You're welcome, UFC.
100% rock solid. That interview, and I just watched it last night, moved me in a way that I didn't want to be moved. When you want to look at an interview and get excited for a fight, that's not the interview to look at, I'm afraid, because it's really sad.
Like, do you take from that quote that he's just going to go in there and lose? Like,
you're going to go down there and look to try and take as minimum amount of damage as possible. That could be something that he's looking to do. Try and find an easy way out.
Throughout this whole kind of build up, and I think most people have kind of poo-pooed it when I've said that, but I don't. Do you think
we cannot doubt that, though? You cannot doubt that. Like, what's in it for Nate Diaz if he's going to lose anyway? What is he going to do? Try and tough it out for 4 or 5 rounds and get the head beat off him, and then suffer more? So it is, but he had a bit of a purpose before in the continuity of his UFC career, but he doesn't have that coming into this fight. And that's what makes it a bit intriguing for me to look on, not from a competitive standpoint, but all of these little stories that are going to come out after the fight as well. Can Khamzat do it? Can Khamzat do it impressively? Can Nate Diaz cause an upset? Can he be even competitive in this fight? Those are all the big overarching questions that I have about this. Harry?
I also just want to slightly push back on what Shawnee mentioned earlier about, like, if a Julian Erosa or this or that guy. I think the difference with if those guys are leaving the UFC is nobody really cares about those guys, right? If those guys leave, even a Sunsao by the end of it, a Sunsao was the old guard. And to some extent, Nate Diaz was the old guard 5 years ago, right? But then the Conor McGregor thing, and I don't know how long 5 years ago was. I'm just saying it as a number.
100,
right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, it could have been 1,000. I agree with that. I think that the reason why this is egregious, the most egregious, is because we are all aware in the in SevereMMA and equally in the hardcore segment of fans, we are all aware of the limitations of Nate Diaz's skill set and exactly what you need to do to beat him. And then we look at Khamzat Chimaev and we're like, like, if you built a character on a game to beat Nate Diaz, it looks like that, right? And we can talk about the nooks and crannies and the technical aspects of the fight, but I understand from a business perspective why the UFC have done it. Why? I do not agree that they had to do this. I don't agree in the slightest. You could do Nate Diaz versus somebody of, we had Joe Lozon versus Donald Cerrone recently, right? I know we didn't. Did we actually have that fight? Jesus, it feels like ages ago.
It got cancelled maybe once or twice. I think it went down eventually 2 events after it was supposed to.
Right. I don't remember that fight existed. But like that level of fight is something that you could have done for Nate Diaz. Does Nate Diaz take that? I mean, we've discussed this previously, and me and Spencer had an argument about this on another podcast, and I think he does, right? Shawnee's thankfully Googling whether Joe Lozon versus Donald Cerrone
didn't happen. He ended up fighting Jim Miller.
Jim Miller. Oh, shit. Yeah, it was Jim Miller. Yeah.
Right. But then you see that that's the similar type of thing, right? You could chuck a 170er in there with Nate Diaz and say, go off right into the sunset, and he may lose, he may not. So I don't agree that it had to happen. I totally understand why it has happened.
But that's matching a company man. And you're the last thing you would call Nate Diaz is a company man for the UFC. Sure. So that we've seen that time and time again when fighters speak out, they get the tough roll of the dice all the time. And it's why it. Go ahead, Sean.
When I say it has to happen, I mean though, like I don't personally think Chimaev is the right guy either, to be honest. And I'll tell you why. But if you're Nate Diaz, right, and you're a big draw, right, the first thing, and this is the biggest problem with McGregor as well when he's coming back, you have to give him a certain name to put him at the top of a pay-per-view card. Like you can't put fucking Joe Lozon versus Nate Diaz on the top of a pay-per-view card. Let's be honest here. You know, maybe Tony Ferguson is the name, maybe McGregor is the name, but they wanted McGregor. He just didn't wait enough. And I think Tony Ferguson has fallen off too much of a cliff for that to happen. But the problem is here, and you know, I think we're kind of agreeing, but in different ways. I think Chimaev will actually look like a bully here, and no one likes a bully. Like everyone likes lads who go out there and smash other people. And the great thing about like a Chimaev or a Habib is they're smashing other lads who smash other lads. You know, when you go out there and you smash Conor McGregor, it means something. If someone would, you know, you go out there and you smash Gilbert Burns, it means something. When you go out there and you smash Nate Diaz after being expected to smash him, after already he didn't smash Gilbert Burns, you know what I mean, and smash the lads he smashed before him, now you're looking like a bully. And now you're looking like a guy who's taking easy fights, and not a can crusher per se, but like it looks bad. And that's why I think the Chimaev decision was the wrong decision. I think the decision to put someone over with Nate Diaz was the right decision. I'm not sure who it could have been, to be honest. I think that's a very hard decision. McGregor would have been the perfect one, if we're being honest. Or Paddy Pimblett, maybe, or someone like that. But that probably wouldn't work out great. Yeah, the thing about this, right, is I don't like this fight, and I've kind of found myself playing devil's advocate throughout the week, I suppose, with this fight, because I don't like it either. It's the same, but I would say as the 2EA. But I can definitely understand it from their point of view. I can definitely understand what they're trying to do. But yeah, I'm not sure if it'll work. I think the point that I think both of you actually touched on there is what's going to happen afterwards. And, you know, we'll probably need like a post show for this one, I think, because the integers with which Nate Diaz will leave the UFC, I think, are going to be very, very interesting, because, you know, I don't want to talk about Jake Paul, but he's boxing Anderson Silva next, not fighting, because if he was fighting, he'd get fucking killed. Boxing Anderson Silva next, he will almost certainly lose that, I would say. And what happens then? Like, he's already a busted flush at the box office. If he's going to be a busted flush as a legitimate boxer as well, Jesus. I don't know. It's not a great fight to make. So where does he go? Like, it's the same as this Francis Ngannou thing the whole time. People are like constantly saying, "Oh, go box, oh, earn all that money, leave the UFC." He might get lucky and get like 3 million to fight Tyson Fury, and then he's fucked for the rest of his career because he's no more money to earn. He might get out 200 grand out of the fucking PFL fighting nobodies. But people just don't think, I think, too far about this. For Nathan Diaz, I'm interested to see where he goes. The thing about Diaz as well, he only fights like once every fucking 2 years. He might only fight once or twice ever again. So he's in a better situation than Francis, but it's very interesting.
On that point, sorry, and if I could
go for it, Harry.
On that point about the bully thing, something that you've mentioned previously, and I think actually is a wrinkle here that it's just occurred to me as you said it. This is supposed to be sport. And one of the things we like about sport is when you see a team versus another team that's relatively competitive. The reason why the Premier League or La Liga, this is a perfect point. The reason why La Liga is looked down upon.
Congratulations, Harry. Well done. The perfect point.
Well, the reason why the Bundesliga is looked down upon is because it's either a 1 or a 3 horse race, right? You look at the Premier League and Leicester won it not so long ago, right? Teams are getting into the top 4 or the top 6 that shouldn't be there, quote unquote. There are 6
Even Liverpool won it.
teams.
Well, like, but any team can win on any day in the Premier League as well, which makes it more intriguing as well. Even the bottom teams against the top.
Whilst we should say, and we should be honest in saying, there is a chance that Nate Diaz goes out and something happens and he gets his hand raised, right? Whether that's through an injury or whether that's through a legitimate win of some kind, there is a chance. But this is absolutely, as Sean has already said, this is absolutely not the same chance as Leon Edwards at the peak of his powers versus Kamaru Usman at the peak of his powers. This is not the same thing.
No, absolutely not. I would have to agree 100%. And it's like, you know, it's something since the Leon Edwards win has kind of, you know, I would maybe have been guilty of being maybe dismissive over some fights sometimes. And it's something that I've had to think about a lot. And it's something that I thought about a lot coming into this fight, but I don't think this is the fight for it.
I think you have to be, though, like, because if we do that, if we sit in the fucking fence every week, it's going to be a very boring show. Like,
100%.
If I don't come on here and go, I think fucking Irina Aldana is going to head kick Macy Chase on around one. Like, it's going to be boring as fuck. Like, if we don't take that stance, and like, not just take a stance for taking a stance, we're not going fucking Stephen A. Smith here, but if we believe it, we have to go out and say it. Like, some people will come on and to be afraid to say it or afraid to give their opinion. We have to give our fucking opinion. That's our job. That's what people listen to us for. Like, if I go, or Harry goes, or you can go and analyze the fight, and you think, right, this person fucking drops their hand every time they're throwing a jab, they're going to get a big right hook over the top and they're going to get knocked out. Then we have to say it and give our prediction that they're going to knock out. And, look, we all go through the same things like, Jesus, lads, look, Diaz could submit him. But we all know he's going to get fucking smashed, if we're being honest. Like.
Yeah, and that's my kind of analysis. Harry, please take us in a little bit more in depth on what kind of analysis you've brought forward for this fight, how you think the fight is going to go. And what are some of the, look at if we're all kind of in agreement that Chimaev is going to be, what kind of openings is he going to be trying to look for to kind of get Diaz out of there?
He doesn't have to look for anything. He really doesn't, because Diaz is going to give him everything. If we go and look at the Edwards matchup, Nate Diaz has he doesn't change ever, right? If anything, Nate has become slightly more passive as he's gotten older. And maybe that's because he's wary of the damage that he's taken in previous fights, but he stands with his right shoulder low, his right foot all the way out. Opposite stance, he does exactly the same thing. He's liable to leg kicks. We've seen it previously. The jab doesn't come as fast as it used to, so he's open for jabs, he's open for right hands, he's open for big overhands. He doesn't defend takedowns well. He has a sub 50% takedown defense, and for a guy that's a jiu-jitsu black belt, that's horrendous. He gets pushed back far too often. In the Leon Edwards fight, he was resorting to running to the cage and turning his back to force Leon to try to engage with him so he could throw an elbow or catch him off guard or whatever. Like, all of these sorts of antics are going to lead to him getting hurt, is the honest answer. Now, I'll end this with a question in a second, but for Khamzat Chimaev, we saw in the Gilbert Burns fight that he can do everything at any moment during the fight. His transitional fighting is fantastic. His ability to switch from grappling to striking to grappling to striking and back again is brilliant. His ability to chain wrestle is brilliant. And his positional awareness when it gets to the ground and his scramble ability is fantastic. These are the things that Nate Diaz used to rely on, is his scramble ability, his ability to pull somebody to the ground, his ability to react faster than somebody when they're on the ground. This is not going to be the case in this matchup. And again, I say this with all respect for Leon Edwards. If Leon Edwards takes your back and holds it for a significant amount of time, and if Leon Edwards punks you like he did with the 2 foot sweeps in their fight, Khamzat Chimaev, with the athleticism, the speed, and the willingness to go forward, throw and land shots on you, is a really, really dangerous prospect. The question I have here is, does Nate Diaz go full heel, get into the cage and tap immediately?
Oh, geez, I was just having that thought. That would be insane. My goodness, that would be unbelievable. I don't know. There's crazy things happening in the octagon before. We can't completely rule it out. I wonder would there be lawsuits or whatnot kind of brought forward? Would it be worth it? It'd be interesting to see if he did. But I think I heard a slight narrative, and I want to ask you, Sean. I'm just going to say this. I want to ask you about Chimaev himself next, and maybe how far you think he can go in his base level of skills. I think there was a narrative shared that, and Nate Diaz is trying to push it a little bit himself, and that, he went 5 rounds with now the champion Leon Edwards and hurt him at the end. Nonsense, because Leon Edwards fought Nate Diaz's fight, and Khamzat Chimaev is going to fight Khamzat Chimaev's fight, and that's not going to be good for Nate Diaz in this fight. I think it's a matter of when, not if. But the focus we have on now, Sean, is Khamzat Chimaev. Based off what you've seen so far, and the biggest test did come against Gilbert Burns, probably will be still his biggest test even after this fight. Do you think he can go all the way? I know we've had a couple of private conversations thinking that, we're really high on him. This fight might not do so much for him. It's just going to be a good name on his record that people can look back upon at times. I feel that if a win against Nate Diaz, no matter what the result in Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards was, I don't feel it would have warranted a straight title shot. Maybe the UFC would probably have pushed him in there, but I would probably have liked to see him fight once more. Where potentially can he stand after this fight?
Very high. After this fight, this fight doesn't really do much for him. Let's be honest. If he goes in there and destroys Nathan Diaz, the weird thing about it is, right, so Leon Edwards is the champion at the moment. And I would say right now, there are 4 or maybe 5 guys in the welterweight division that I'd pick to beat him. That's how good this fucking division is. It's unbelievable. So to say that Chimaev will get to the top, I would say yes, right? But God Almighty, if Shavkat Rakhmonov gets there before him, then maybe he'll never get to the top. If Sean motherfucking Brady gets there before him, maybe he'll never get to the top. If Kamaru Usman gets back there again before him, he might never get to the top, and he might beat any or all of those. But this division, it's unbelievable. The quality, and we can't forget Bilal as well. We always seem to forget Bilal, but he's a good fighter and he's improved, and he's a smart, intelligent guy and uses what he has very, very well. This division is insanely good. Is he the best of them? Probably, yeah. And the thing about this as well, about this certain fight, you mentioned there that he is kind of that he won't fight Nate Diaz's fight. He'll destroy Nate Diaz everywhere. Like if this fight turns into a striking match, he just has too much power. We remember McGregor fights against Diaz where he knocks him down, right? After hitting him hard. Diaz is there to be hit for a long period. What Diaz is very good at is being durable, keep going and going and going, and then, try to win the fight later, maybe even not necessarily late after, the second or third round, take you there, and just he's able to keep going. He's unbelievable character. Nate Diaz is a great fighter, like a very, very good fighter in lots of different ways. But the problem is here, right? Let's say it happens like it happened with McGregor. Now, remember, Chimaev has knocked out middleweights in the UFC. McGregor was fighting at 145 before that. That's what, 35 pounds of a difference. He's knocking guys out. He'll go down with him. He knocks him down, he'll go down on top of him, and then you're more of a world hurt. Whereas other guys, McGregor namely and Masvidal namely, don't really have that. They're like, stand up, come on, let's fight again. On the feet.
Even fucking Masvidal did that to Nate Diaz.
Masvidal destroyed him.
He destroyed him on the feet and then went down and destroyed him on the floor. Because he did choose to follow him down as well. And
this is Dr. Stoppage written all over it, I think. It's going to look like Masvidal. He's going to tear him up. He's going to elbow the face off him. He's going to cut him and bloody him. That's why I think it's going to look like a bullion unless he taps after 1 second, which I said for weeks that could happen. Like, that's the thing. You never know with Nathan Diaz, right? The one problem I would say with that, and the one reason why I think he won't do that, is because it seems like he wants to have another boxing match or fight again. And God Almighty, would you ever spend another 70 quid on a guy who you just spent 70 quid on in a shit card, and it's a one fight card, and he gave you 0 seconds of fighting? That's the sort of thing I'd never buy a fucking Adesanya one again, because he didn't give me 1 second of fighting. Never mind if an actual not 1 second of fighting in Nathan Diaz. But yeah,
I can make an argument for that.
Go on.
I can make an argument. So at the moment, I don't think there's been more negative rhetoric against the UFC than we've had in a long time.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but when you pay 70 quid, you don't give a shit about your negative rhetoric after three fucking cans.
Yeah,
you know?
I can attest to that as well, because I do pay a fucking 70 quid for each of those pay-per-views.
Yeah.
And if I do the work and do the preview show even more so, and then tune in and watch that, and he taps out, I'll feel robbed. I'll feel completely robbed.
The difference and the thing that we're not maybe looking at or focusing on is there are people, and especially somebody like Nate Diaz, that has a cult level of following. Those motherfuckers will pay 70 quid to watch him now and pay 70 quid to watch him box, because they'll see that if he taps, they'll see the tap and they'll say that that's the final way of Nate Diaz going out on his terms, fucking UFC over, etc., etc., etc. That's the rhetoric that Nate Diaz will play with. I think the reason why he doesn't do this is pride, if I'm really honest. I don't think that Nate will allow, because Nick would never do it. Right. So I think Nate will go out and do I'm Nick Diaz's little brother and I'm going to fight for Nick Diaz army and all that, fucking God's wallop, and likely get murdered in the first round. But I wouldn't hold it against him if he did do that, because this is going to be a one-sided beatdown. It is.
Can I ask you a question, but both of you has experience with both of this? No, I'm getting into the madness of it, I suppose. But is there any chance, like Nathan? It was funny. I was listening back. I've been making these stings and stuff. I was listening back to the interview I did with McGregor, and he was talking about if his leg had been broken, he'd play off of his back and he'd elbow lads and stuff. Is there any chance that Nathan Diaz goes into this fight with and this is me saying this now, but a plan A jiu-jitsu game here? He's like, right, take me down. Let's get the fight to the ground. I'm gonna get you in in mission control or something like that. Even I'm going to get you in a very defensive position. I'm going to go for arm bars, go for triangle. Now, obviously, he's going to get the fucking head elbowed off him in the meantime. But still in all, is that his best path to victory after look for one?
I think it probably is, and the way I would look at that, if you're Nate Diaz, is that you're going to be outmatched in all departments. So what are you going to do? How can you give a fuck you to the UFC without winning? Well, number one is what Harry said, is go in there and tap straight away, but that's going to equal other problems. Number two, you can go in there and fight very defensively, and you can fight a really boring main event, and you can make Khamzat Chimaev look kind of a little bit labored in what he's trying to do. And what UFC wants here is a spectacular finish, a spectacular fight, a spectacular knockout. And that's what's going to put over Khamzat. So if Nate Diaz can go in there and make things slightly difficult for him, clinch up, tie him up in his guard, stay thrown up, let him not win impressively at all, that's not going to go down too well with the fans either. When you're trying to create the narrative that you're going to go in, and that's what Khamzat is trying to create. He said, I'm going to go in and smash this guy. He says that he's going to do that. He says the UFC, I'm going to put a hit out. I'm going to do the hit job on him. If he doesn't do the fucking hit job on him, well, then he's going to have to answer those questions, and he could end up being a little bit smaller down in the stock than he would be before the fight as well. Now, all of that I said is very fucking wishful thinking, to be honest, in comparison to what I really think is going to happen, which is what we've all been saying. It's probably going to be an annihilation. Harry?
If you're playing jiu-jitsu from the bottom, you're losing. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you're playing from the bottom, and look, close guard in MMA should be banned. How often do you see guys from the bottom hit arm bars from guard, hit triangles from guard? It doesn't exist in modern MMA. It just doesn't. And of somebody of Khamzat Chimaev's awareness on the ground, it's definitely not going to happen. And I think to the point of try and clinch him up, tie him up, you'll just get foot swept and put on your back. And then immediately it's side control, or immediately it's mount, or immediately it's knee on belly, and you're fucked. I don't see a situation where Nate can really stall him for significant periods of time, because we also have to think about the athleticism. Gilbert Burns is a freak athlete, and Chimaev for that first 2 rounds, looked like a better athlete than Gilbert Burns. And I just can't see how Nate, mission control doesn't really exist in MMA either, but you know,
Jeez, I think you're hanging around too much with Sean Sheehan there,
Yeah,
Harry.
well, listen to me too much, definitely.
Paul Craig is on the phone. He wants to talk to you, wanting to ban full guard.
but I mean, the difference I think with Paul Craig is he allows the strikes to come, and not only does he allow the strikes to come, he's expecting them to come, and he's maneuvering himself in a fashion. Nate Diaz is just gonna sit there, throw the fingers up, and try and triangle you, right? Like, can he sweep Khamzat Chimaev, take his back, and finish him? Maybe. But I find it very, like, go on, Shawnee.
How good is, like, this is a fucking stupid question to ask. How good is his jiu-jitsu? Like,
Doesn't need to be good. His positional grappling awareness is good enough. The wrestling awareness is good enough that, look, for Nate to catch him in a triangle, Khamzat's going to have made a series of mistakes that he does not usually make.
It's the wrestling here for Khamzat. Like he went in there and was dominant over a guy like Jack Hermanson in a kind of a wrestling grappling match as well. So that proves he has some really, really strong wrestling, and that's always been the kryptonite for Nate Diaz. Like, you can go back and look at Rory MacDonald absolutely fucking ragdolling Nate Diaz around back in the day, and that's probably not going to change here if Khamzat Chimaev chooses to do so. He has so many avenues for takedown: single legs, double legs, closing the distance, clinching, body locks, you name it, he can fucking do it. And Nate Diaz is there for the taking if he chooses to do it. He might go out and choose to stand and strike with him. He'd be at more risk, but it's still at an advantage with the power that he has and the speed that he has over Nate Diaz too. It's just a fucking crazy situation that we're dealing with. Like, and you know, it's like, I don't even know kind of how to comprehend it or kind of wrap it up. It's just like, it is what it is. It's like, we'll wrap it up in an 8 years kind of way. It is what it is, kind of a way. But I mean, look, we're 36 minutes in. If anyone is here wanting to listen to the breakdown of the rest of the card, you're probably not going to get it today. We're concentrating on this fight, and we'll touch on a couple of the other fights. But this is a big fight one way or another, even though we agree with it, even though we don't agree with it. Does anybody have anything else to add? Maybe Harry, go ahead.
I want to try and steelman the argument that they really do put Khamzat Chimaev over with this one. There is enough, I think, of a cult following of Diaz, and I think enough people respect his approach to fighting, and they can play the highlight reel of him hurting Leon at the end. They can play the highlight reel of some of his successes in the Masvidal fight. They can play some of they'll replay the McGregor thing over and over and over and over, right? And then Khamzat will go in and, you know, almost certainly destroy him. And I feel like for the hardcores, we will understand what's happened here, and it won't move the needle massively. But at the end of the day, the UFC cares less about the hardcores than they do about the other millions of fans that are adopting the pay-per-views, and they'll tune in because Nate Diaz's head is at the top, and it's Chimaev, and it's been two gangsters, and this and that and the next thing. Like,
you know what they do care about right now, and that's their fucking deal that they've made with Abu Dhabi, and having a guy in there that can sell fights like Khamzat Chimaev as well.
Exactly.
And that's why we're seeing Islam Makhachev going over there. That's why we're seeing fucking the former champ, the current champ, whatever you want to call him, Charles Oliveira, having to go over into basically enemy territory to fight Islam Makhachev. And I think that's crazy, but that's going to play a major factor too. They're going to want to be putting over those kind of stars to sell tickets in Abu Dhabi as well, and to kind of nurture up the deal that they struck with whatever guys they struck with over there, all the sheiks and all the boys over there.
I agree. And I just think, look, at the end of the day, more than ever, the UFC has shown their hand as an entertainment business, as wanting to build personalities, build stars, or allow stars to be built underneath them, and then, you know, elevate that stock. Khamzat Chimaev is the next guy. He talks well, he has the profile, he has the Instagram, he has this, he has that, and he has the fighting style. So they'll promote the shit out of him after this, and he probably gets the title shot after the rematch.
Can I ask you a question, lads? I don't know if you want to move on here, but just...
No, I want to stay going.
A quick aside, right? Who is the best welterweight in the world?
Right now?
Yeah.
George St. Pierre. I'm only joking.
Wonder
Wonder Boy. Yeah, he is. Yeah, look at him there.
Who is the best welterweight in the world right now?
It's Kamaru Usman.
Kamaru Usman, because he got. I'm looking at that as a great win for Leon Edwards, but he got caught. He got caught in that. He let slip, and it happens. He hadn't fucking let slip for nearly 18, 19 fights before that. Shit happens. Ask me again after the rematch. If Leon goes out there and does it again, fair bollocks to him. I might have a different opinion. But for me, it's Kamaru Usman. You, Harry?
Oh, yeah, it's Kamaru Usman without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, just overall skill set and proving that skill set, it's got to be Kamaru Usman. I mean, you can make the argument, and I'm happy to hear the argument, that Khamzat went into that fight with Gilbert Burns, had a great first round, and then was like, fuck it, lads, we're fighting, aren't we? And just chucked the balls at the wall. And you could hear his coach.
His coaches were going nuts.
Bollocking him over and over, like, you're being a dickhead, don't do this. And he was like, shut up, we're having a fight. We're having some fun, right? And even in the back, there was, there was conversations in the back of the car after the hospital, and he was apologizing to his coaches for his performance and apologizing for going away from the game plan. But yes, Kamaru Usman took a shot against Gilbert Burns and then absolutely murked him, right? So for me, it's Kamaru Usman.
I think probably the worst thing that may have happened to Khamzat Chimaev was Kamaru Usman losing, to be honest, because now he's let slip and now he has the opportunity to kind of right those wrongs. And look, he's getting up there in the years as well. He doesn't have all too much time left at the top. And this knockout may change him too. We simply don't know that as well. But he's probably going to come back refired up and rejuvenated and repurposed. And that for me is kind of bad news to Khamzat Chimaev, however long Usman does have left at the top.
Another thing in Chimaev, maybe it won't necessarily show itself in this fight, or maybe it'll never show itself, but we know all about Chimaev's tactical nous in all different areas, as Harry just very beautifully explained there a few minutes ago, and as we've been talking about. But we always talk in these podcasts and the SevereMMA podcast, the Speaker's Corner, and other places as well. What separates good fighters from great fighters is their ability to game plan and use the game plan out there and have it. And do you know what's a massive thing as well? Switching from 3 rounds to 5 rounds. Like, can Chimaev keep fighting for 5 rounds in the pace that he does? Now, maybe this is a good fight to actually test that, and maybe it won't go there. But you know what I mean? Maybe it is one of those fights. Like, Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards and other guys like that, they're proven 5-round fighters. Look at Leon Edwards, what he did the last day, even though maybe before that I was kind of even saying maybe, although I did predict the fight would end in the last minute of the last round. No, I did say Usman would win, but I did predict it. But that's a massive question over Chimaev. Like, it's a question he hasn't answered. Do I think he'll be able to answer that question? Yeah, probably. But it's definitely a question he hasn't answered yet. Now, as I said, it probably won't be an integer which decides this fight at the weekend. But what if it is? What if he gets tired after 3.5 rounds? Do you know who won't be tired in the 4th and 5th round? Nathan fucking Diaz.
And if we get to that stage, that's when I'll be kind of scooting forward on the armchair outside and thinking, all right, we're getting ready to go. But Harry made a great point about Chimaev and the way he fought against Burns is where he threw the game plan out the window and just went to war. Look, that was good in a way that we showed that he has heart, he has durability, he has a chin, but it was bad in you can't do that at the highest level.
Can't do that against Usman.
No, you cannot do that against Usman. You cannot do that at all. And it'll be interesting to see if he chooses to do that here, because sometimes you can't control that. And we spoke about that with Nathaniel Wood as well. Sometimes you cannot control that. Sometimes you just get fucking cracked in the face and you go ballistic trying to get somebody back because it's like, oh, you got me, I got to get you. Because we're in a fucking fight at the end of the day. Like, people forget that you're in a fist fight where there's shots being thrown at your head. So things can get fucking crazy in there. And we too well know that. I mean, maybe the last question I'll ask to you, Sean, overall assessment of Nate Diaz's career. How would you assess his overall career? Never a champion, lost a couple of big fights in his time, won a couple of big fights too. Arguably his biggest win was over Conor McGregor. How would you overall assess his UFC career? Because we'll have to go with the assumption that this will be his last fight for now with the promotion.
Look, he was a fan favorite, I suppose, is the assessment of him. A good fighter who was, never a great fighter, but also like a trying matchup for some people, I would say. There was always a certain type of fighter. Like, if you look at some of his losses, throughout his career, like from the Dong Hyun Kim to Rory McDonald, heavy wrestling beating him. Benson Henderson, just a better, well-rounded guy beating him. The same would probably be said for Josh Thompson, a very well-rounded wrestler beating him in Dos Anjos, and then obviously McGregor putting on the display he put on to beat him as well, and then Masvidal and Edwards. He's only losing to good fighters. Like all of those guys I named there are all very, very good fighters. Everyone from Benson Henderson up to Masvidal and even Edwards after, they're all champions in the UFC. So he's only losing to the very, very best. But like a fan favorite, do you know what he is? Here's exactly what he is. He is the last of a dying breed. Like the Rampages, the Wanderlays, the kind of the unicorns in mixed martial arts. We don't really have them anymore. Like when Melvin Manhoef walked out in Bellator and robbed my chewing gum off of me, I was like, oh, fucking Melvin Manhoef. Like we have a couple of them still. I think Yoel Romero's one, because I'm looking forward to going and seeing Yoel Romero of them, just to see the specimen that is Yoel Romero. But we don't really, have them anymore. You see Fedor walking out, it's a big thing.
It kind of boils back down to the nostalgic way when we were kind of getting into the sport as well, and looking up to these guys. I think, especially for me, and in my experience so far covering the sport, I've had to try and beat that out of myself.
I think there's a part of that, but I think the presentation of fighters, I listen to wrestling podcasts all the time, and a great Canadian, Lance Storm, always talks about the presentation of obviously wrestlers, but of MMA fighters as well. Like now they're all presented in their Venom gear with every single fucking person in the arena wearing red shoes, and they're all the exact fucking same. That's like Rampage was Rampage when Rampage was Rampage. If that makes sense as a sentence. Like if Rampage has walked out to me the week before he fought John Jones, I would have been like, oh my god, and in the middle of his prime, like, and the same for Chuck, and the same for Fedor, and the same the way they are now. These are people like that at the moment. Like if Sean O'Malley, if I saw him at Bellator, I'd be like, oh, there's Sean O'Malley or whatever. I mean, it'd be cool to see it and all of that, but it's not the same as the big ones back in the day. So I think that's because there's too many fighters, there's too many stars, there's too many people we know, and I don't think they're as cool as they once were either, to be honest, because they're not allowed to be in lots of different ways. But
no, Rampage was outrageous. I traveled to see that motherfucker fight Forrest Griffin at UFC 86 in Las Vegas when I was 20.
Never been the same.
Yeah, 21 years of age. I loved it. Like, and those characters, those are the guys that they're sticking out like a needle in a haystack, if you want to call it, but the opposite way. That was a horrible reference, but whatever, you know what I was saying. They're sticking out from a crowd with their personality, with their outrageousness. But Rampage could fucking fight too, but he was massively entertaining. And Nate Diaz, everybody wants to tune in and see what he has to say. Everybody wants to tune in and see what Nick wants to say, because they're going to say some outrageous off the cuff shit. They're not going to be company guys. They're going to try and belittle the UFC and the organization as much as they can. And you know what? That's kind of refreshing in a way, but ultimately it ends up with you headline an event against an absolute killer.
Can I make a slight admission here? Sorry, Harry. I've never been a massive Diaz fan, to be honest. Do you know what people are always saying? As fighters, I'm a massive fan of them. I like the way they fight. It's different, and maybe it's not brilliant, but it's different. I just never liked they're the realest people in the game. Like Tim, I don't know, maybe it's an Irish thing or something, but like
I'm much more of a Nick fan than I would be a Nate fan, to be honest. I mean,
I just think it's like acting like gangsters when you're a fucking vegan jiu-jitsu guys. Like McGregor did it perfectly. Like you're gang signs at one hand, animal balloons at the other. Like that, to me, they should be coming at it like that. You see in boxing a lot, these guys that come from like a really tough area and they emerge from it to be like, boxing saved us and stuff. We have that little bit in MMA, but it feels like that's what the Diaz brothers are. They came from this really tough area. MMA saved them and made them millionaires. But it feels like everyone wants to, they're gangsters and they're going out doing all this wild shit. They don't really do any wild shit. They're doing fucking triathlons on a Saturday morning and they're smoking a bit of weed, okay, but they're fucking vegans and they haven't an ounce of fat in them. Like, these guys are model citizens and we're acting like they're some fucking gangsters. That bit has always like been a weird thing for me and a weird narrative around them, I suppose. But I would have liked.
It was a gimmick. It was a gimmick that they kind of fed into, which you can. And Stockton is a rough ass area, but there's probably thousands of more gangster style and more dangerous guys than the Diaz brothers that have ever come out with Stockton. Well, I'd never say that to their face.
They don't come from the mean streets of fucking Newcastle West, I'll tell you that.
That's the truth. Right. Let's get into the main event. I'm going to go straight to, or the co-main event. Li Jingliang versus Tony Ferguson in the welterweight division. Sean is going to swiftly move away. How do you assess the analysis of this fight? This is a tough one to call for me. I can see Ferguson only winning by decision. I can see Zhang Lang winning by decision, but also by knockout. I think that the good thing for Ferguson is that this fight is at 170. He does not have to cut weight, so I'm happy about that. But it's just hard to get a read on exactly where Tony Ferguson is at right now in his career. Li Jingliang is also, 35 years of age, so he's no spring chicken himself. I mean, this is a confusing co-main event for a pay-per-view card.
Look, it's two fellas that they've put together because they need a co-main event, right? It feels to me as though I actually completely agree with you. I think it's very, very difficult to have a true read on where Tony is. And that to me is the biggest question here. Was the first round against Michael Chandler where everyone was a bit like, oh, fucking hell, he's not a cupboard now that's just ready to get the fucking door smashed in and on the way out. Like, is that a fluke? Was that the last hurrah we had? Is that knockout? Like, is that the last pin in the cushion? Right? I don't know. Li Jingliang isn't a super dangerous guy. He has some power. He has a bit of wrestling. If he gets to your back, he can be dangerous. But it feels to me as though this is a matchup with very little foresight. This is just can we still use Tony's name for future fighters to build from? If not, grand. Li Jingliang gets a win and Tony probably rides off into the sunset somewhere. From an analytical perspective, I feel like Tony probably has the advantage in straight wrestling. Tony's awkward style, his offbeat style, his ability to sort of move in awkward ways and find single legs and ankle picks and head snaps and these sorts of things. He grapples in a very specifically awkward way, whereas Li Jingliang fights and grapples in a far more standard, I don't mean that disrespectfully either, but like a far more standard, straight down the line. He's going to lower his level, throw a feint, look for a single leg or a double leg, or he's going to push you against the fence. I think size is going to be a big problem here. Tony wasn't a massive 155er and certainly isn't going to be a big 170er, whereas Li Jingliang, looked a similar size to Khamzat Chimaev when they fought. So I think size will be a problem. I'd be very sad to see another Tony knockout loss, but it could certainly happen.
Yep, I can't disagree at all. I'm going to move on. Sean, do you have anything else to say about that fight?
I just think every time I've been asked about this fight this week or it's come up, I said just tune into the preview show and Harry Powell will give you the breakdown. So I can't really say that again. The one thing I would say though is Tony Ferguson is like plus 266 to win this fight, just straight up, which it's a good bet because if it loses, it's the last time you'll ever bet on Tony Ferguson. It reminds me a little bit of the Vicente Luque Tyron Woodley fight. It's like if he can't beat Vicente Luque, with all due respect to him, I know he's your favorite fighter, but if he can't beat him, he's done. Right? He's done as a top fighter. And if Tony Ferguson can't beat Li Jingliang, he is done.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think Tony's game plan for me is probably going to define how this fight goes. I think he should choose to use his grappling. He has the advantage there. We've seen Li Jingliang getting dominated in the grappling department before, because if he chooses to stand and bang, you're leaving yourself right in the firing line, because Li has that one punch knockout power and Tony has had a lot of damage on his chin. So it's a fight. Look at our predictions are going in. I haven't sent mine in yet. I wanted to record this first, kind of get my opinions. I still don't fucking know who's going to win this fight. I'm going to have to pull the trigger tonight on that fight, but it'll be interesting nonetheless to see what happens, if it will be the last hurrah for Tony Ferguson. 4-fight losing streak heading into this. Not great at all. Kevin Holland will go in there against Daniel Rodriguez at an unusual 180-pound catch weight. I don't see the point in this at all. I mean, are you fighting at welterweight or are you not fucking fighting at welterweight? I don't know whether this was a last minute kind of change in opponents. It doesn't seem to be. Just strange. I think if you're looking to try and progress yourself up the rankings at welterweight, you got to be fighting at that weight. Daniel Rodriguez had his last win against Kevin Lee in quite some time ago now. So look at Kevin Lee has kind of fell off the radar a little bit as well. This is a good honest test for Kevin Holland coming in here, but a win or a loss here is not really going to prove too much either which way.
What disrespect you show there to the super welterweight Eagle FC #1 contender Kevin Holland. Well, fucking dare you.
Yeah, fucking hell, almost got.
Kevin Lee, what's it? Kevin
That's
Lee.
why I was getting confused. I was like, Kevin Holland, Kevin Lee. Too many Kevins.
Too many Kevins. Like Kevin Holland's another one of those else, Ian, we both been on his trail and then kind of quickly gotten off of it. He looked better mentally the last time. He didn't look like he was fucking around. He looked like he was actually, there to fight. Daniel Rodriguez is a good fighter, so it's a good matchup.
It's going to be a good test for him. I mean, but
yeah.
my what I'm thinking is that this is a meaningless weight. It doesn't make any sense.
Weight cutting.
Yes.
Yeah. More catch weight. There's another catch weight in this as well. The Jaltan Amida one. Great. I have no problem with a catch weight. They're meaningless fights. These lads are not ranked. They're nowhere. Let's fucking not have him cut that extra 10 pounds or 5 pounds. Let's Bellator do it all the time, and I fair fucking bet them. Fuck weight cutting, fuck weight classes, more catch weights. That's what I said.
The inaugural 180-pound catch weight belt is on the line for Kevin Holland and Daniel Rodriguez. Another fight that's happening on the main card: Irene Aldana versus Macy Chiasson. Good on those women. Wish them all the best. Moving on.
Fight, probably.
Could be. Irene Aldana is going to beat the piss out of Macy Chiasson.
Yeah. It's like I would not see this fight as a competitive fight at all, really. I mean, it's propping up Aldana in the rankings again. I mean,
Chiasson's tough, right? Chiasson's tough. She's got a bit of a jab, she's got a bit of a grapple, but Aldana's too long. She hits hard and she actually finishes fights, right? And in a female division, 135, finishing fights is tough enough. And she should. If she sticks to the game plan that she has adopted in most of her fights, I think the boxing, the counter left hook, the straight right hand off the angle change will be enough.
I mean, with the current status of that division, are you like really, really kind of guaranteed a #1 contender? Would you be looking at Juliana Pena getting another crack at the title there? Are you willing to sit on the sideline? Where Irene Aldana, I guess, you could get the win. I could see her maybe trying to challenge Holly Holm again. She has a loss with her, get that win back, maybe trying to secure her status, but that mightn't go too well for her either, and then you lose that #1 status. So, I mean, this is, I guess you could call it technically a #1, but I just think at the current status of the bantamweight division in the UFC, that's going to be on hold for at least a year, if not a year and a half, until Amanda Nunes decides what she wants to do, or if Juliana Pena wants to go back and get that trilogy fight done. I think that's the best and the best and the biggest. What?
Caitlin Vieira? No,
Caitlin Vieira is up there as well. Like, I mean, she's there too. You could have them two knock each other off the pedestal either. You don't want to be killing away any contenders either in the division, really, don't you not?
Yeah, they need someone just to be like the meat for the dinner at 145 as well at some stage. So maybe one of them can push up and fight at 145. But it's interesting. There is a women's featherweight fight on this card as well. Danielle Wolf in her second professional fight, I believe, against Norma Demant. I actually really like Norma Demant. I think she's a very good, efficient, talented fighter, and it's just a pity that really don't. She's not in the division, and
you just like her because she has a good jab, Sean, and she jabbed the shit out of. Yeah, that's it. All she done was throw the jab in her last contest.
Danielle Wolf is a really good boxer. Like, that could be good.
No, that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting, and it'll be the second women's 145-pound fight in a row on a UFC card. So we're getting a few. It's getting back up and going again. Another fight that might spark some interest on the main card is Shawnee Schuler, who's going in there and taking on Ion Cutelaba, and Sean Sheehan is going to make it rain if Johnny Walker can go in there and get the knockout in round 1. My simple assessment on Johnny Walker's last couple of fights, and I spoke to Will Fleury, who is a training partner of Johnny Walker, about this as well, and I feel that Johnny Walker fought Jamahal Hill like he should have fought Thiago Santos, and he fought Thiago Santos like he should have fought Jamahal Hill. And he's going to have to find that fine balance in between those two performances in order to get Kaya Kutalaba out of there. I think this is a very winnable fight if Johnny Walker fights the right fight. But just to kind of say what we were saying about the main event, Johnny Walker has a tendency of getting cracked and going fucking nuts in there, and kind of the game plan goes out the window. Sean, I'm going to give the floor to you to explain your assessment on why you fancy the first round knockout for Johnny Walker.
Do you know what you said there, especially the last part about Johnny Walker's right? He gets cracked and he goes a bit mad. Kutalaba probably 50 times worse at doing
yeah.
Johnny Walker there. I think exactly. I think we've maybe spoken about that before, even as well, about Johnny Walker fighting the wrong fight at the wrong fight. If there's any fucking semblance of intelligence in Johnny Walker or his team, I'm not sure if he's with John Kavanagh now or if there's someone else backing him. But God Almighty, just let Kutalaba come in, let him, frustrate him for 2 or 3 minutes, let him go berserk. He is going to throw 4 or 5 shots, and I watch a bit of Kutalaba. The one thing he does, he throws boom, 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 and he stops. And he's right there to get fucking hit, and he won't keep throwing shots. He will just stop and wait. Just wait for him, back up, boom, hit him with the counter, and gonzo. It's as simple as that. Kutalaba, all he has is a big fucking knockout. He's a bit of wrestling as well. He can wrestle, he can maybe take you down, if he's feeling some kind of way sometimes, but if you frustrate him, he will lose. He said, I guarantee it. Johnny Walker's a big enough underdog here, and I feel as well though, those last 2 fights, people are like, oh, Walker fought this way against Santos, and now he's given it up and he's gone back, and he lost those 2 fights. But I actually think Johnny Walker improved an awful lot. I think it was a good performance against Thiago Santos, but too defensive, and then obviously it was too offensive as well. If there's any semblance of the right fucking blend between the two of them, I think he's just so much bigger than Kutalaba. He hits harder than Kutalaba. He's more skilled than Kutalaba. And he'd probably fucking lose because that's the way
it's a huge fight for Johnny Walker here, Harry. I mean, he won 1 in his last 4, a win against Ryan Spann, a fight in which he was fucking badly hurt in too before he came back as well. And another night he could have been put out of there as well. Cannot really afford to go in and drop another loss here to Ian Kutalaba. He really has to fight the perfect fight. I completely understand your way of thinking, Sean, and the plus 650 for the knockout, because like I said, these two boys could get hit and they could go fucking ham and anything could happen. But what I would hope, and I would hope that what is being drilled into Johnny Walker before this fight is a bit of discipline and a sticking to the game plan to get the job done. Because if he has both of those things, I think he goes in and gets the win against Kutalaba. How do you feel the fight is going to go down, Harry?
It just depends which Johnny Walker turns up, is my honest answer. And I know that's a bit of a cop-out, right? But we've seen that Johnny Walker can stick to a game plan. Thiago Santos, for the ceiling that Johnny Walker seemingly has, is a tough fight. We know that Thiago Santos can do the long game. He can pick you apart from the side. He can go backwards. He can fight forwards. He can do the stalemate game. Jamahal Hill, as we've seen, is, if we listen to the Oracle himself, Mr. Sheehan, he'll tell you that Jamahal Hill likely wins a title in that division at some point in his future. So losing to that man is also, absolutely no shame in that whatsoever. But we've seen that Johnny Walker can stick to a game plan. It's just against fighters better than him. And again, that's not a problem either, really. You're in MMA, you're going to lose fights. But as we've already mentioned, and Shawnee sort of stole my point of that, Kutalaba will he'll turn into the Tasmanian devil for about 3 seconds, and then he'll stop because he's tired. And if Johnny Walker is able to just cut an angle, as we've seen in the Thiago Santos fight and in the Jamahal Hill fight, he will find the opening. I think what you need to do is you need to sprinkle the madness like Salt Bae, right? Like you allow him just an element of the madness. This is the new thing, by the way. We've just discovered a new thing. You just deliver the madness at the very end. something that I've heard a lot in grappling and whatever is there are certain guys that you just allow them to lose. You don't even need to beat them. You just allow them to lose. And Cutelaba is absolutely that guy, right?
So what you're saying, Harry, is that if you're Johnny Walker here, you have to wait until the juice is clear before you put the salt down on this performance.
I'm right. That's it. That's the element. Let's go.
Give the steak 10 minutes after it's cooked.
10?
10 minutes, I don't know.
But that's what Volkanovski said the other day. I was watching.
Just his opinion now. He's a good man. He's a good man. Steaks is different though, because you can get different varieties of steak that has to be cooked different as well. I'm a man that will not let my steak sit around too long because it always looks too delicious, always smells too delicious, and I don't want to get that into my belly. But a bit of seasoning at the start, cooked. I like it cooked medium to well done as well. Although I have been kind of leaning towards the medium side of things now with a little bit of pink. I'm not too keen on the bloody side of it when it comes to steak, but there's going to be Harry eats his steak raw like a real man. Is that right, Harry?
As a friend of mine said once, pull off the horns and wipe its arse.
That's it.
Oh fuck! Oh man, I wish we could. We don't have too much to go there, but that's almost worthy of finishing it up. That's what Johnny Walker needs to do against Ian Cutelaba in this fight is pull off the horns, wipe the arse, and get that win. I mean, oh Jesus Christ, that was brilliant. We shall move on really, really briefly to the prelims. Harry, is there anything that's sticking out to you on the preliminary action? Anyone that you're looking forward to seeing? Anyone who should be keeping an eye on?
I mean, I think Hakeem Dawodu versus Julian Erosa is probably the best fight on the whole card, to be honest. Which doesn't say a ton, but Dawodu seems to have come on a little step. He seems to believe himself a little bit more. We've seen a little bit from the wrestling. The striking has always been nice. Julian Erosa, very long, very experienced fighter. I think he's improved since he's come to the UFC. It's a fun fight. I'm down for that one. I like Jailton Almeida. I think he has a nice upside. I have no idea. Spencer's not here to tell me about the fella that he's fighting, but he came from the Contender Series. So it's almost certain that Jailton Almeida is going to go in, do the big explosive double legs, and probably finish that fight. And the only other one, just purely because Alatang Haley is in that fight. Alatang Haley versus Chad. Oh, Jesus. And Heiliger? And Heiliger, maybe? We'll go with it. Alatang Haley always brings the fun, so we'll watch that fight.
Alatang Haley was fucking really good and really exciting in his last fight against Kevin Kroom. Absolutely devastated him early in that fight as well. So I'm interested to see how he gets on here as well. One to kind of have a look at, and I agree with you with Hakeem Dawodu as well. A very exciting prospect. One of the biggest prospects coming out of Canada right now. One of the people that a lot of people in Canada are guys they're getting excited, and it's a very winnable fight here against Julian Erosa, against the name too, which kind of gives me the opinion, UFC are putting him in there with a name or someone that's recognizable, hoping that he'll get the win. He's going to be headlining the prelim, so they may be looking to give Hakeem a little bit of a push after this if he is successful. Like I said about Jake Collier and Chris Barnett, is probably going to be fun for about a minute and a half until Chris Barnett punctures and tires out, and we'll see if Jake Collier can get him out of there after that and not get spinning kicked in the head like fucking Gian Fiante did. But Sean, maybe I won't ask you about the fights on the prelim, but maybe I'll ask you who you feel the fight of the night is going to be. Are you excited about any other fights on this card or any at all?
Look, I love Jailton Almeida. I think he's really, really good, as Harry said. Himself and Carvalho coming through. I really like the two of them. I think they have, as Harry said, a lot of upside. I like the opening fight of the card, Johan Lanise against Darian Weeks. Lanise hits really fucking hard, really hard. And if he can connect, that's probably a good bet there to throw into your Aka against Darian Weeks, who, brings it. He fought Ian Gary, didn't he? If I'm not mistaken, Darian Weeks. Yeah. So I think that'll be a good opener. I think there'll probably be a heavy knockout there for Johan Lainez. But yeah,
interesting to get a gauge on Darian Weeks too. I always interested in seeing opponents after they fight someone like Ian Gary to see how they progress, and you can kind of get a good read on maybe the progress of Ian Gary as well through that fight. Even though, like you said, he has a pretty damn good chance of getting knocked out against Lainez as well.
I think Harry is correct, or the two of you maybe even kind of said it. The Dawodu Rosa fight is the only one that I look at and think, it's a sort of fight that could turn into an epic where Dawodu takes him down, he's baiting him, and Rosa gets back up. Dawodu maybe looking a little bit tired. Rosa kind of comes back and makes it a bit of an epic. I honestly don't really see another fight in the card like that. No, I hope I'm wrong. I hope there's 6 or 7 of them on this card, but just like I do think Walker versus Kutalaba.
That's what I was going to say too. I think it could be an interesting fight. It's an interesting fight. These two boys could land early and all hell could break loose and anything could happen. And I think UFC's placement of that fight at the start of the main card, they're kind of hoping for that to happen as well. Harry, if you're looking at any fights of the night, you're kind of along the same lines as what myself and Shawnee were thinking there.
Definitely. I think the fight of the night is Hakeem Dawodu versus Julian Rosa.
Indeed, and that wraps us up for another preview show. We'll be back once again next week for more action. Thank you.
This bathroom here in the Mage Training Arena is called the.
I heard some voices in my ear there. Don't know what the hell is going on. Shawnee is playing tricks.
It wasn't me. It was one of fucking ye this time. It definitely wasn't me.
Right, we won't point any fingers, but I want to remind everyone. I love it. I want to remind everybody before we go over to eatallreal.com. Enter the code word SevereMMA. Get yourself some all real nutrition bars from the lads over there. Delicious. Head on over there too. I want to ask one more favor of you guys before we go to, and that's check that. We've lost our preface, but we have not lost that barcode in the top corner. Head over there, scan that barcode, join up with the SevereMMA Patreon. Top-notch content there. The Q&A, Chasing Pack, Contender, Speaker's Corner, everything is over there. Hot Topic has been introduced recently. You're going to get no better value on the market right now than over there on the Patreon account. We do our best to bring you top quality content and we enjoy doing it at the same time. Support independent MMA. Support Harry Powell. Head over to BJJ_Harry Powell. Check out his Severe Spotlight this Monday coming after the card and every Monday after the card at Sean Sheehan Bad. Not looking for any followers anymore, but you can check out his further work over in Sherdog and obviously on SevereMMA.com as well. Check out the Owl Triangle. Check out the preview show here every week. If you liked what you listened to tonight, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with a friend, grow the audience. Magnifique. UFC 249. Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz this Saturday night. We are out like